Yes, hello. This was the guy that was supposed to talk with you today. He called me like a couple of days ago and said, Kjartan, you need to do a presentation about startups. And that's about all he managed to tell me on the phone. And sometimes at 3 o'clock last night, I finally managed to write this presentation. Of course, I need to do some adjustments. Actually, it's not even correct. I'm not lead game designer anymore. I was more like, well, no, I'm managing director of Shanghai. No, principal game designer. That's right. And this goes to show that in a startup, you have to wear many hats during the lifetime. And maybe just to give you a brief background where I come from. I actually am a physicist. Got a PhD in physics, and that's why I can tout the doctor in front of my name. But it's really not been helping me a lot. The founders of both the companies that I've been involved in startups are both college dropouts. The only place where I see this actually doing anything is in Japan, where you get like 10 degree more bow from the people if you have like this on your name tag. After the physics, I was completely fed up with it, and I came back to Iceland, and I decided to do graphic design in an advertising agency. Actually, my former boss is in here. I still don't know why he hired me. But I quickly got involved with the burgeoning internet advertising market, which was happening in '94, I guess. And then I jumped ship to go on the incredible trip that Oz was, and I was the CTO of Oz from '95 to 2001. And by the way, I'm a little bit interested, how many people have been at Oz or in affiliated company by Oz here in this crowd? Yeah, that's quite good. Talking about a network. And then I joined CCP in 2001 as a lead game designer. So the subject of this talk is going to be this, to be or not to be a startup, or not to lose it. And the reason for this title is that I thought about it the other day in the executive team. Suddenly we had a question, are we a startup or not? And after lots of thinking about it, we sort of came to the conclusion that we obviously were not a startup anymore. A little bit too big for that. But we all agreed that there was a lot of things that we sort of didn't want to lose from being a startup. So here I'm just going to go through a little bit my personal story of startups and how it's entwined with it, and try to draw, at least from my personal view, 3 very simple truths that I think are essential, that are like issues with startups and also issues when you grow as a company. And I think it's important not to lose those characteristics. And it's not to say that we, for example, at CCP have been very successful in not losing those things, but at least we have been painfully aware of many of those and are actively trying to keep those. So just like take a brief trip through history, and 1994 was the big time of the internet coming out. I remember it was, I think, the image tag in HTML that made it all happen, if I remember correctly. That's when advertising could finally do their stuff. But actually, for some of us, that was really old-fashioned, this internet stuff. We were much more into like the virtual reality and being able to, enter the metaverse through some kind of 3D device and interact there on the network. It's kind of premature, but that was basically the concept that Oz at the time started with. We were a very small group of people at the time. I think we were about maybe 10 people. Guðjón Már was the founder, and Skúli Mogensen came in with some fresh money. And before we knew it, we had the great ambition of rewriting the operating system for the internet to make 3D virtual reality accessible to all and everybody, and makes a lot of money. And this was quite an ambitious plan, obviously. And we also went through a lot of Sputnik kind of growth. Which I remember, like, basically 8 months after we started this, we ended up sitting next to Bill Gates and his family and Robert Murdoch offering some drinks at the bar at the Allen Company Sun Valley convention, and we thought it was all normal. But it wasn't. So one of the wisdom that I'd like to draw from here, which I think is very important, sounds very banal, but I think it's still something that you need to keep in mind. The question about sharing a vision. And the thing is that communicating to other people your thoughts is really, really difficult. I don't know if you know Ogilvy, famous advertising mogul, once made a study that he put like an advertisement to a group of people and with some text in it, and then measured how much people had understood the advertising. And it figured out that about 30 or 40% actually understood it. And this was a message crafted by specialists in communication. So this goes to show that sharing a vision, communicating a vision is really, really difficult. And that's one of the good things with startups, because you're a small group of people, in many cases good friends, and sharing a vision becomes trivial because you're basically sitting in the same room all day long and all night long, talking about the stuff the others are passionate about. And this isn't really a problem, so you don't really think about it. But later, as you grow in your company, this becomes more and more difficult to share that vision. And that is a very bad thing. So you really need to think of ways when you go from a growth, small startup growth to a larger company, is how are you going to make sure that everybody shares the vision? And it's a tricky thing to do, because if it's too big a company, you might end up sounding like a corporate messaging, which nobody likes, etc. So we are always trying to find ways to do that. I mean, we do Scrum management, Agile, which sort of helps to a certain degree, but still with multiple offices, it's all very difficult. But basically, if there's something that you should try not to lose, is your ability to share a vision with the groups of people that are supposed to make it happen. And it's not an easy task. So let's go back a little bit to what we were, these crazy ideas that we were trying to do there. Obviously, it quickly became apparent that the world was not ready for all of this stuff. What Oz at that point needed to do, and we went through a sort of introspection and was looking at, okay, what about all these ideas that we have? How can we factor them? How can we create smaller products out of them, etc.? And we went through a very interesting phase there. And I think it was a kind of a defining moment for many companies that came later from Oz, not maybe directly from Oz, some were spin-offs, some were simply founded by people that had been working in a company at that time. And it was a great entrepreneurial school. We wrote probably like 5 or 6 different business plans at the time. And it was really interesting. This was also a defining moment at the time because Reynir, the founder of CCP, also decided at that point that he wanted to concentrate on the game side of things, which had been part of the focus that we had. And he founded CCP in '97 and took off. And eventually we were sort of, you could say that we split up in this way, like there was CCP building games, and then Oz went on to concentrate on social networks and communication technology, more like a B2B venture than a B2C. And this is like was a moment also which was very defining for both of these companies. Went through a lot of difficulties. In the end, for example, Oz went through a restructuring and eventually moved to Montreal, where they actually made good on their promise of the social networks and actually made a good amount of money. And Skule Mogensen came back with it to Iceland, which is good. And then we at CCP, and I joined about 2001. At that time, we were still funded by a round of financing that we got here in Iceland. But we were also looking for a publisher, and that wasn't going very well. And in the end, we were to the point where we actually couldn't pay salaries for about 3 months. And hopefully, the good thing is that people stayed on the project, which was really nice. And we managed finally to get a publisher. And that got us through to actually launching our product. And 1 month later, the the publisher decided to close down their publishing branch, and so we were sort of back at square one. But this was really a good thing for us because we managed to reacquire the rights and decided to become completely independent and go through online distribution, and this worked extremely well for us. But that leads me maybe to another thing which I think is relatively important, is that managing uncertainty is very a very key attribute in managing your business. And a startup has more agility in the sense that maybe there's less to lose. You are maybe a few people, and you can do mistakes, and you can react rather quickly to mistakes. You can change your plans, etc. at a very short notice. But in a bigger company, it becomes a little bit more difficult. There's more momentum in it. The risks are bigger, and also there are like less people experience to deal with those. Even though at the upper management you might have experienced people that dealt with a lot of risk and uncertainties, you also have a lot of junior people that can get very terrified when things are not going the way they think they should be going. And I think it's important to keep a culture within the company where people are not afraid of changing things, are not afraid of completely rethinking the product and rethinking the markets, etc. But this is something that I think is also a danger to lose when you grow too big. And now for Eve, we go to this step here. We're basically this growth period that we had where we finally managed to let it all fit together. And we sort of discovered that we did have a social network, even though it was sort of shed out before. And it all started remaking sense again. This world that we were making, we were having good success commercially. And so we sort of like started figuring out that maybe we had found the final magic formula that we were like thinking about 10, 15 years before that. And this also gave us the opportunity to start thinking about growing and issuing more games. And that also means growing a lot of people. It's kind of difficult to do that only in Iceland. So that also involves opening new offices and facing another problem, which is nurturing culture. And the problem with a company culture is that it's not something that you design. You cannot have a committee that decides at the early phase of a company, let's define our company culture. It's basically something that grows organically, and sometimes you're maybe lucky with it, sometimes you're not. But it's not something that is easy to manage. And the culture in a startup is usually pretty casual. There are a few reporting lines, and most people know each other, etc. But these kind of cultures don't necessarily scale, and they might not also be exportable. And personally, after that Eve was on the right track in 2005, we started thinking about expanding to the markets in China. And it was decided that I would go there to Shanghai to start up our first new office. And it was kind of interesting. Then I realized really what my task was not really to build the product as such, but the most important thing was how to seed the culture of the company such that you don't end up with another office which is completely alien to our home office, because that wouldn't work to work collectively in the company. And what I was faced with when I came to China is that this is what's pretty much the company cultures in game companies in China. And this was kind of a culture shock. But you shouldn't underestimate, it's not only China. We also had you can also have culture shock with the United States, for example. It's a very different culture than Icelandic corporate culture. But I'm just talking about China in this case because this is what I was faced with every day. And yeah, we ended up doing basically this, and our Chinese employees even, they thought this was silly. You know, why do you give us so much space? Why do you have like these big screens all over and, you know, comfy chairs? They weren't quite buying it, but after a while they got accustomed to it, and I think we managed sort of to make a cultural change as well. So it's not only us that had to change, but also our employees. Maybe it was related to the management style as well. In China, the management style is very hierarchical. The boss is the grand master of everything, and is not to be spoken to except if asked questions. My management style was a little bit more like this. And I think that in the end we ended up with a pretty good sort of office which captured a little bit of our company culture. And it's about 120 people now. And we are retaining the people also a lot, which has always been a problem in China. And I think that this is where it's valuable to think about this. And if you have a good company culture, it helps sharing the vision, like I said before. It also helps handling crisis. But most importantly, it makes it like something that people look forward to going to in the morning, going to work, because there's something exciting happening, and they have fun there. And this is not trivial, and we've not always been good at it. And like I said, it's very subjective and delicate. It's difficult to measure or quantify. So it's like a little bit like a dark art of managing this. But this is something that you should definitely think about when you start growing. It won't happen automatically that your company culture is going to grow or scale or export. So if we look today where we are with this brand scheme of ours, we basically have this big product, Eve. We're now launching our second product, Dust, which actually is related to this, to Eve, in one big thing that we call the Eve universe. We have all these different devices connecting with different languages, billing system, all kinds of people, all kinds of markets accessing this. This is the world we're making, and this is sort of a vision that was shared from, like I said, nearly 20 years ago. There is like a red thread going all the way back to there. And that shows you how much time these things can take. But now we finally feel that we are at the point where we can really start capitalizing on this. And maybe we're at the point where Össur was in 2000, and we'll start having like a boring time after this. I don't know. Hopefully not. But yeah, like I basically just wanted to iterate these 3 points. There are probably 100 more points which are important, but these are the ones that I could think of. It's basically trying to keep the culture of sharing a vision, make it effective, and make that such that everybody understands what we're doing and why. Retaining the agility to change is very important, especially when you're in a very volatile market. And taking care of the company culture and not assuming that it will just stay there or grow with you. And that's about all that I had to say. Thank you.